Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott. Many things have still changed, but I am joined by Josh Brown, surviving.
Hello.
How are you doing, Scott? In the ether. Now, it took us a long time to get this set up, but I do think that it's all right. I think it's usable. I can't tell. The comments will probably savage me anyway.
Maybe. I don't know. I think it's okay. It's the best it can be. You know what I mean?
It's you can vote in the comments as to whose lighting setup is better, because for the love of God, I'm not very comfortable in mine. What?
I tell you what though, Scott, this, as bad as this is, it can't look worse than Sony's presentation last night.
That's the segue of the year. The segue of the the lockdown so far. I watching that thing last night. I didn't. I turned it off. I thought that it was terrible, and I get the whole feedback of people being like, well, you know, it was like, oh, what they had planned for GDC. Was that communicated beforehand? Because like all I saw was PS5 breakdown, and then I love Mark Cerny, but a man talking me to sleep.
Right, that's the big problem with it, because I can cut Sony a lot of slack, as you all probably know, because this was supposed to be the GDC talk. But the problem is, like you said, they didn't communicate that very well. When I was watching it on their stream, there was almost 700,000 other people watching this, expecting it to be a sort of E3 style, presentation. And I don't think they did a good job of communicating that. And it's not just this one talk that's the issue. It's the fact that over the past few months, they've been so quiet. People have been so starved of news, and they expected something, and the fact that Sony didn't clarify it, like, I can see why a lot of people are perhaps justifiably annoyed, because they expected to see something, at least see the console, and what they got was 54 minutes of technical, a lecture, essentially. One of the worst 9 a.m. uni lectures I've ever been to.
Right, yeah, that was the vibe. It was very much, here's my PowerPoint, and that has its place, like, totally. I think they could have done a much better job of flagging what this thing was going to be ahead of time. Just said, look, this is literally our GDC talk put online. Have you seen the stuff about the fake crowd? That it was like a Adobe Premiere crowd that they dropped in?
Right, no, because I'm not going to lie, I don't want to be too harsh on Mark Cerny, because I think he's a good dude.
No, he's lovely.
Yeah, exactly. But I was doing like belly laughs at this show all the way through, especially the fake crowd, because for the majority of it, I was certain it was fake because they didn't move. And then I got about 40 minutes in, and they started moving around, and it was the biggest shock, the biggest plot twist of the year. That's going in a list somewhere, man, because I couldn't believe my eyes. It was perfect popcorn like stuff, man. Like, it was a complete, from a fan consumer perspective, kind of a complete train wreck, and yet it was so funny to have tuned in expecting an E3 thing, and to just be talked about the dream and the promise of the dream, and the SSD and the fake crowd that turned out to not be fake. It was mad, but I suppose there was some interesting stuff in there. Like, I'm still excited for the PlayStation 5, but Sony's messaging, it's all over the place. They used to be so good. And I think ever since the PlayStation 4 Pro, they just kind of dropped the ball, because this reminded me of that reveal where they went into the specs. And it was the most boring thing ever. Yeah, and
I did a video back then, just as I do, just complaining. I don't know where you were at this point, but I was complaining to a camera, no one else in the room. But I had things to say about how boring that was as well. And they spent forever going like, oh look, you can zoom in on Spider-Man's mask, and a PS4 Pro and everything. And over time, I gave in. But like at the time, I was like, you do something so much better than this. And yeah, I mean, for me, for this particular thing, it comes after that Wired interview where he was like, this is how the console is going to be. And then they're like, oh, by the way, we've got a logo. And for me, like, I tweeted it out and stuff, but like compared to where Microsoft are at, where they're just like, here's literal features of the console. Like, we're literally demoing load times, and we're showing that you can pause and resume stuff. We're even giving you like a little tease of the UI and like, Game Pass and backwards compatibility. And then Sony's just like, well, we kind of just put a dev talk online, and it's got a weird fake crowd. And Mark Cerny, as much as he has a role and he's brilliant, maybe wasn't the guy for that, I don't think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you mentioned the Wired talks there, and that was the biggest disappointment for me, because for the most part, this was just an elaboration of what they've already revealed. Like, he's already talked about the SSD, he's already talked about backwards compatibility, he's already talked about ray tracing and stuff like that. And yes, it was going into more detail on those features, but like, we know that stuff. And Microsoft has come out last week, and they've shown their console. They've talked about the features. They talked about the specs in a much snappier way than Sony has. And I think it is part of the fact that they confirmed that it's still coming in 2020. But man, it's at the end of March. Like, I know world events are happening and that's stopping them from doing stuff, but at the same time, like, if it's going to release this fall, they need to get stuff out there and get people excited. And what we've seen so far have been a couple of interviews in this dev talk. And again, that might be great for developers who want to get in the know, but for people who are going to buy the console, it's not exactly the most stimulating stuff.
No, it's like at this stage, we don't even know what it looks like. We don't really know, like, you know, there's, like I said, like if you compare it to Xbox, because when this thing finished, did you watch all of it, by the way? Because I was just like, as much as I want to know all of this, I just turned it off. It was killing me.
Well, I wanted to turn it off, Scott, but because I'd spent so much time doing it, I was typing up like the details that were being revealed for the website, which you can check over at whatculture.com/gaming, I think. But so I had to watch it all for that. But I was bored to tears after halfway through.
It's just like, that idea that they, like I said, they have the world's attention. You say anything relating to, PS5 announcement, PS5 breakdown, they can call it a technical breakdown. And I totally get the people that are just saying, look, all this was ever going to be was exactly what it was. This sort of quite dry rundown of, technical features. I just think they could have advertised that so much more beforehand. And for me, the competition is like speaking volumes, because all it took last gen to, get ahead was to do everything that Microsoft weren't. Like, we had that whole Disastrous Connect reveal. The Sony got out there and did their little viral video, and then they announced that you don't need DRM to play games and everything. And perception is extremely important, and I know that they're going to bring the games later. But for me, this was like a pretty categorical, cataclysmic failure.
Yeah, man. Like, I think all they needed was one big reveal. If they ended it by showing you the console, it would have been worthwhile. If they ended it by announcing backwards compatibility for all previous PlayStations, that would have been something killer to tack on. That would have, I think, appeased a lot of people. But it just fading to black in the most awkward way wasn't inspiring. And I think some of the things that they said about the technicals weren't inspiring either. Like the backwards compatibility thing, they've announced that yes, it's going to be backwards compatible with the PlayStation 4, and those games are going to look better and play better, even more so than Xbox One X games do compared to original Xbox and Xbox 360 games. But at the same time, at launch, there's only going to be the top 100 games for the PlayStation, which leaves a whole bunch of titles, you'd presume, not being playable, in considering how much of a head start Microsoft have already with their backwards compatibility thing. I just feel like Sony's so far behind in that regard, and I know they're probably doing all they can do, but like, I feel like they should have jumped on this sooner or figured out a way to adopt this sooner. I don't know.
I wonder what they do for the rest of the year. Like, because for me, this like lines up with all the various stories that we've heard, which, I mean, who knows how true they are about like production problems. And obviously there's the reality of what's going on in the world is probably going to affect the manufacturing of the systems themselves. But like, there was that whole thing where they were already struggling to get certain parts together or something for the PS5. And it's like, is this just a consequence of that? Is there a lack of confidence in the rollout because they just aren't actually ready to show everybody, but they know they need to because Microsoft are way far ahead?
That might be it, maybe just because Microsoft are confidently coming out and talking about the console. And I think even last night they updated their websites across the world to say that it's coming Thanksgiving, so it's more specific than just a holiday 2020, and launch date or whatever. But yeah, like it's hard, especially when you compare the consoles side by side, because it seems like the Xbox already has the leg up in pure raw power. I know there have been reports that Sony's SSD is much faster, and that will allow for more interesting worlds. But in threads by developers on Twitter and stuff, they're saying that will only mean something very valuable for the first party titles who get to properly harness that power and create something special. And yeah, that's good. But if the baseline, just say it's an important marketing thing for Sony or Microsoft to be able to say they have the world's most powerful console, you know what I mean? Like Microsoft have really capitalized on that over the past few years, and that sells because a lot of us aren't techies who sit through 50-minute GDC talks. I could barely understand what was going on, and I'm not like ashamed to admit that. And I imagine the average person who's buying these machines knows as little as me as well. So all they need to see is like, well, the Xbox One X is more powerful, so I'm going to buy that. And why should I buy Sony's SSD? Because that's not really being conveyed to me why that's important or how that impacts games. It's a weird situation, man. Like, even more so than the last generation, because that was odd in the way that Microsoft was so arrogant and Sony was so smart and responsive. But this is just a completely different ballgame, which is strange because the machines themselves, at the core of it, sound like such a leap up.
Yeah, I'm curious where the hell they go from now. Like, it's just like you said, like comparing it to the last generation. Like, Sony won by being so reactive, and I don't think that like Phil Spencer and like the head of Xbox, I don't think their marketing or their approach will be to sort of jab Sony when they're down. But like at the same time, they have an open goal. Like, but the thing that's kind of getting in the way of the Xbox is that they don't have any like major exclusives right now. It was like, oh, we're not going to do any major exclusives for 3 to 4 years. And that kind of allows the PS5 to take off again. Obviously, for the most part, PS5 has the goodwill behind it. But I don't know. I guess we should probably clarify the stuff that came out of the talk itself. But for the most part, it was just the SSD is brilliant on the PS5, which means that it'll load stuff a lot faster. In theory, the actual amount of teraflops, the amount of floating points is better on the Xbox, which means that the Xbox Series X can render more stuff, but it seems like the PS5 is more of like a sleek machine and will render it all faster. I think that's the basic breakdown.
Yeah, like that sounds like the crux of it, but it's not just, it's not just hardware or the specs that, make these machines so special. It is the software, like you mentioned, like the exclusives. Like for me, I'm going to buy the PlayStation 5 before I buy the Xbox One X because of the exclusives, just because I love, Horizon, God of War, Spider-Man, right. And I want to see what they do next. And that is kind of exciting, but it's such a tease for Mark Cerny to be saying, well, I was recently at a studio and I was looking at what this development team was doing with a PlayStation 5 game, but I'm not going to tell you about it.
It's just that idea that they keep forever like falling back on teasers. Like, yeah, we got the Wired interview, but we'll have more to show. We got the logo, but you got to come back later. We've got a full-on PS5 breakdown, but we're not going to show you it. Like, just for me, that this is a Mark Cerny lack of confidence that I think would just roll it out. Just show me a screenshot. You've clearly got them. So how hard is it to just like get some hype going? Like, it's not, it shouldn't be that hard.
I know, and it makes you wonder when they're going to actually show it, because I can't imagine they're going to swiftly follow this up, if you know what I mean. Like, I imagine it's going to be still at least another month or two before they officially show something off, because the whole idea of that major blowout presentation PS5 reveal thing, that's just dead in the water at this point, isn't it? I mean, that was supposed to come at the end of February, and yes, world events are happening, but they haven't had anything to replace it. If it was ever going to go ahead in the first place with sort of a stream or even just a viral video or something like that, or just anything, a trailer for a game, I don't know, because we know those are made or being made.
They could do with doing they could do with doing a state of play, but actually have stuff in it this time. Don't just make it your indie showcase. Like, be like, by the way, here's Horizon 2, God of War 2, Spider-Man 2. You have all these open goals, and you can say that they're PS5 exclusives. Maybe even address that weird Castlevania Metal Gear thing. Like, do something that gets conversations going. It just seems so empty.
Well, it's funny though, and I don't want to rag on Sony too much, but at the end of the day, like, they haven't actually revealed that much less than Xbox, really. Xbox, we've seen the console, but the rollout has been all on the spec side of things from Xbox at the moment, and so has Sony. It's just the way they've been delivered. Like I said before, Xbox has been snappy, it's been to the point, all the information there, whereas Sony continually seems to be teasing that they're going to show more, and then they don't. So they're kind of on level playing field in terms of reveals, because Microsoft have only really got Halo Infinite, I think, that they probably announced as exclusive.
They showed Hellblade, like, there's a tiny bit of it, and I know that they said that that's cross-compatible, but like, yeah, they did show that and said it was running on Series X. So I kind of took that as like the debut of the new hardware. Whereas like on Sony's side, it was just Godfall, which is Gearbox's game, and that's coming to PS4 anyway. And like Godfall is like the first PS5 footage, just seemed kind of underwhelming.
I agree. Like, yeah, man. Like, I just want to see some games. I just want to see something. I mean, we've got Doom Eternal this Friday, so that'll tide me over.
Oh, God, you do. Animal Crossing, Resident Evil 3 demos out today, so there's plenty of things to tide over until Sony realize what the hell they're doing, pull their finger out and reveal Kratos. But
just do that, yeah. Have Kratos coming out of the shadows again, and I'll pop again.
I will pop again. But yeah, let us know anything down in the comments below. Were you surprised by what Sony decided to do with the PS5, or was it exactly what you thought? For now, though, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
I'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.